This is a quick video about the rapid versus slow cycling of carbon. So carbon cycle is a complex one. It's intertwined with the oxygen cycle because almost everything we do with carbon involves oxygen. If we are doing respiration, which is part of our rapid cycling of carbon, we are taking something like sugar, and we're using oxygen to, well, make ATP. This CO2 as a gas, and this sugar, which was a solid, the CO2 that's a gas is going to go up into the atmosphere, whereas the sugar was locked into some plant material or some animal material. So oxygen and carbon, that was a CO2, are two sides of the same coin, both for respiration and for the flip side, photosynthesis. So respiration and photosynthesis both have the same reaction, just the arrows going in the opposite direction for photosynthesis. And they both have the same reactants and products. For rapid cycling of carbon, our definition will be that it happens quickly. It's right there in the name. So things like respiration and photosynthesis happen quickly. Things like decomposition happen quickly. And things like combustion, if there's a forest fire, if we burn oil or coal, if we just burn anything, that's going to release CO2 also into the atmosphere. As far as rapid cycling that takes carbon out of the atmosphere, that puts carbon into a sink, photosynthesis is our major one. For slow cycling, this is something that would change the location of that carbon from somewhere easily accessible, like on the surface or in the upper ocean, the shallow layers of the ocean, or in the atmosphere, down deeper, harder to get to. So things like sedimentation, where living things sink way deep down into the ocean or way down to the bottom of the lake. Things like if we have a marsh and a log gets buried for a long time, so long, maybe thousands or millions of years, it doesn't rot easily. Things like the formation of coal or oil, those all take much more time. So our rough kind of border between the two will be something that if it happens in a lifetime. So if something takes 1,000 years, that's definitely part of the slow cycle. If something takes 10 years or 1 year or even 1 second, that would be part of the rapid cycle. Some examples here. If we have in the ocean, which is a great carbon sink and source, if oxygen is dissolving into the ocean, that's a sink. If we have a rapid thing happening like photosynthesis, pulling CO2 out of the air, or the respiration from this plant or these animals, putting CO2 into the air, those are rapid processes. If we are burning fossil fuels, that's a rapid process. If a volcano erupts, carbon getting into the atmosphere there happens quickly too. If we are burning fuel in our cars, that is also something that happens rapidly. But mining the fuel, processing the fuel, bringing it up from deep below ground, that's part of the slow cycle. It's actually the interface between the slow and the rapid cycle. If something is locked away like coal or oil deep down underground, and it should stay there or would stay there for millions of years, and we dig it up and we burn it right away, we've taken something that was part of the slow process and made it part of the rapid process. Slow cycling can be things like the formation of limestone, which is CO2 and calcium coming together to make stone. Usually that calcium coming from the shell of something like a diatom or other aquatic organism. If we have something that is in part of the rapid cycling, like some phytoplankton or like some fish, and they die and they sink way deep down and they get buried in the ocean floor, they might become part of the long term, the slow cycling of carbon. If we have carbon in rocks that erode, and those eroded rocks sink down to the bottom of the ocean as well. That would also be part of the slow cycling of carbon. There are many examples of this, but the main thing to keep in mind is that if it's happening quickly, like by a living thing or by a fire, it's part of the rapid cycle. And if it's happening slowly, like it might happen in deep down underground, usually underground things just happen slowly, that is part of the slow cycles. All right, just a quick one on those two terms.